too often, we think we're going to focus on our employees. We have the pizza party. We bring in the ice cream truck. We have a gratitude luncheon. But it's one and done. And so it doesn't have a lasting impact. And it can feel a bit disingenuous. So I think, how can you create ongoing, sustainable practices that really are geared towards supporting someone's well-being? My hope truly is that a person can thrive in the human service industry, not just survive it. People need to be able to go into this field and stay in this field and thrive in this field and be proud and want to spend 25 years and not just sort of, oh my gosh, how do I get through one more day of this?
Welcome to IDD Leader, where human services leaders grow their impact, lead with heart, and build the workplaces our field deserves. I'm your host, Nate Beers. Let's dive in. If you're new here, I just want to say welcome. I'm so glad you've joined us. And if you're a leader at an organization that provides services to individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities, I think you're going to feel right at home. So welcome. And if you have been around here a while, you're a regular, you kind of already know the drill. Well, today's episode is part 2 of a conversation with Paige Raetz. She is one of the leaders at Proof Positive, and they are on a mission to bring the science of happiness and well-being into the autism and developmental disability space so that every person, whether it's the person with autism or it's a professional working in this field or whether it's family members or whomever, that everybody does better when well-being is being prioritized. And she can say it much more eloquently than I can. If you missed part 1, you could probably jump in just fine. Otherwise, it's the previous episode. If you want to listen to that first, you're welcome to. But before I butcher anything else that she would say, let's just jump right in and hear the rest of what Paige shares today. Providers obviously have to track incidents and different kind of compliance things. What's it look like to track well-being over time?
Yeah, so I think there are different things you can think about, right? We talked directly about just using something like a PERMA, where you can just track those critical elements. But in terms of sort of the other pieces that go along with it, I kind of like to think of it as like well-being is a leading indicator and things like turnover, burnout are lagging.
Yeah.
Well-being is kind of guiding you on what you might expect is coming. And so that's something I think about. And then I think when you're starting to look at some of these specific practices to impact those elements of well-being, you can think about what that measurement might look like, right? For the individual I spoke about earlier, they were looking at specific things to target the R relationship of PERMA and well-being. And so they were tracking things like incidents with the neighbor.
Sure.
They were targeting also like positive interactions with others that lived in the same apartment complex. So those were some of the measures they're looking at. So I think you can think about it in a number of ways. But overall, I kind of think about well-being being kind of your lead measure and things like turnover being your lag.
Yeah. Is there a way for to go more global within an agency to kind of get like a snapshot? Let me back up. I completely agree with you about turnover is such a lagging measure. And if that's the main thing you're looking at, it's like trying to drive a car by watching your rearview mirror. You actually only see where you've been because it was the choices you made the last 6 months that got that number, not what's happening today or tomorrow. So I completely agree with you about that. And it makes sense to me probably makes sense to anybody very intuitively. If people are feeling good at work, they're going to stick around much more than if they're not feeling good at work. So, but I guess kind of just, again, this is another one of my little tangents here, I guess you could say, but is there a way to track more of like a global, like a thermometer or like a numerically or something that's not just an individual's like a
Hmm.
scorecard that an
Yeah.
agency can look at, so they're
Hmm.
seeing not just is this individual employee doing better, is this individual
But as a whole,
employee,
are we?
but is there a way that it kind of can get put together,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
as a
mean,
whole?
I've seen one agency where they are really just collapsing the individual PERMA scores and looking at them collectively. So what they're saying is like, as a whole, does this team, does our whole organization, are we seeing changes in PERMA scores on these different elements as we are implementing these different strategies? So that's one thing. They're just looking at the average across everyone and kind of collapsing them. I think you could also think about, um, you know, most agencies are doing some kind of a yearly review, satisfaction,
Sure.
snapshot. Could you not just add a question in there, like related to well being? Whether it's as broad as, have the practices we've implemented increased your well being? Have they or have they not? Right? That's one. Could it be a question about how connected you feel to the mission? Could it be a question about how connected you feel to the organization or the colleagues? Like, I think you could look at what is that critical element and just have a question of that and look at that over time as you are implementing these well-being practices.
Okay, that's helpful to know that the whole idea of collapsing the scores and actually just getting an average. I mean, obviously, you're going to miss a lot of the nuance in that, but if you're just trying to get that bird's eye view, that could be quite helpful, especially comparing it to yourself. You're just comparing your own organization to where you were a year before or something to that
Exactly.
effect.
Yeah, I have one organization that was so interesting to me. Um, they looked at incident reports for their people they served. And what they found is the only change they made, and they actually looked at a comparison across two sites. At one site, they started implementing well-being interventions for their employees, and at the other site, they had not yet implemented. And what they found was that um, they were seeing reduced number of incident reports um, for the location that had started to implement. And what was even more interesting is that they were serving more people. So
Huh.
you would expect that you may not get a decrease, maybe you stay stable because now you've got even more individuals you're serving. And what they found was they were seeing a decrease in incident reports and the other one stayed stable. So that was interesting, right? That was the way they chose to sort of say, are we having an impact here?
Yeah.
If that was kind of the only thing they had been doing differently for their team members.
Right. No, if that was the independent variable in this equation, then my goodness, that's very
Hmm.
compelling.
Yes. I just
That's
got to see that. So that was pretty exciting.
that is cool. No, that's really cool. What's one of the biggest mistakes that you see leaders make when they're trying to up the well-being initiatives? Like, what are some potholes that we should be watching out for?
So I think too often we think we're going to focus on our employees and we do, I mean, I'm gonna a little tongue in cheek, but right, we have the pizza party. We bring in the ice cream truck. We have, a gratitude luncheon, but it's one and done. And so it doesn't have a lasting impact. And it can feel a bit disingenuous. So I think, how can you create ongoing sustainable practices that really are geared towards supporting someone's well-being? And, as leaders, I think we have to be consistent. We have to be responsive. We have to adjust. Um, but too often we do sort of a big thing once a quarter.
Yeah, that I really resonate with that. I feel like I've witnessed that trend as well, and it kind of makes sense because it's so much more. Well, it's easier to do that for first of all from a leadership standpoint. Well, we can pull off that whatever that thing is, and it's like, oh, we see a problem, let's throw something at it to fix it. But yeah, I mean, it's the metaphor for me that comes to mind is, so I've been married for over 20 years, and if if I gave really awesome anniversary gifts and Christmas and birthday gifts, but that was like it. Uh, I could tell you, probably, I could tell you where I'd be sleeping, and it probably wouldn't be in the same room. Like it's kind of one of those things. Like it's just not. That's not how those don't sustain for that long. I
They
mean,
don't.
they
Yeah.
can make that could make a really great week probably, and that's probably about as far as that's going to go. And it's the little things, the little check-ins of, "Hey, honey, how are you doing?" and the listening and the small acts of kindness that I think actually make the relationship a rich one.
Yeah. And, what you just said is all targeting those critical elements of PERMA and our well-being, right? It's the checking in, it's the meaning and mattering, it's the relationship, it's the positive emotions, and it's focusing on those for yourself, for your loved one is increasing well-being and it's sustaining. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly that. And we know that the work that we do and many of these settings, it's stressful. You have to make complex decisions quickly. Um, so yeah, a pizza party is great, but is that really impacting my well-being, my sort of risk for burnout next Thursday?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Not unless
Yeah.
pizza parties every day, and then there might be
Right.
some other side effects from that
Some problems. Yeah,
that
exactly. So, I think if you can think about another skill we talk about is movement. Like again, so much research on movement. And I'm not talking like you got to go hit the gym and run for an hour 5 times a week. I'm just talking about movement. And there is plenty of research to show that movement is good for us, right? It increases mood, it can elevate positive emotions, all of these things. So, why can't we build in small movement breaks and movement that brings joy? So, we talk about movement snacks, whether that's in your classroom with your students or someone that you serve or you. Can you not embed in your schedule a quick 3-minute movement break that induces positive emotions? For our team, we do this and it's like, we might turn off our camera in a meeting and we all do something. We have one person who just loves to dance. And I'm like 100% sure on that little movement snack, she's just dancing, delighted in her little break. I'm stretching because that really is something that I enjoy, brings me positive emotions, and I know it's good for me. So it's so simple, right? And that's not a pizza party once a quarter. It's like, hey, we're actually going to support, encourage, and reinforce. We know how to do that. Taking movement breaks.
Hmm. No, that's good. That's a good idea. How about a myth that exists about well-being or positive psychology? Is there a myth that you guys feel like you kind of are frequently trying to say, well, that's actually not quite what it is or how it works?
So I would say probably a few. I think one is that this is all about being happy all the time, and it's not. We we do not we're not meant to just be happy. The human experience is one of all kinds of emotions, and those emotions all have their place. So this is not about like just be happy because that's not real, right? So I think that's a myth. Sometimes you get this like happyology, if you will, and it's not what we're talking about. Um, and when we talk about PERMA and sort of assessing your PERMA, you should never expect that it's going to be 10 out of 10 on every single critical element because it's not the human experience. So I think that's a myth um, that you want to dispel. I think we talked about this idea that like one big thing is enough to support well-being for 3 to 6 months at a time, and I don't think that's true or accurate either. um what else? Probably those
Yeah.
are the biggest
Okay.
ones that I would say for folks.
Yeah. A funny image came in my mind, and if you appreciate humor, I don't know if you're familiar with Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
but Chris Traeger, the positive psychology, like toxic positivity, where it's like, I'm positive, I'm having a terrible day today,
Things great. Yeah, if I just smile through it, it's
and so
fine. And
yeah,
yeah.
I can see how if folks are kind of putting you guys in that camp, it just kind of feels like, well, we know that's not for real. But I hear that what positive psychology is quite different than the Chris Traeger experience.
Yeah. And I think that's, why we often really think about like that science around well-being, because it's not just about being happy all the time. It's
Right.
about how do you increase your well-being and really focus on your well-being the same way we focus on other things. I mean, we measure our blood pressure, we measure our weight. Why are we not thinking about our well-being?
Yeah. So if someone let's suppose someone's gonna maybe they're switching roles or they're getting hired and they know that they're going to be going to a very complex needs environment, and so
Mm.
they'll it's you know maybe there's complex medical, complex behavioral, whatever, but they're going to go in the thick of it, and they know that. What are some well-being practices that either that person could do individually? You've already touched on some, but I just kind of what would be the prescription is probably not the right word for this, but what would be the recommendations either for that person as an individual or maybe the manager of that site or of that setting? Like how, if there's going to kind of be a lot of withdrawals or a lot of high stress situations, what's some of the best ways to counteract that?
Yeah, I think of it as antecedent, right? What are the antecedent-based strategies you want to engage in for yourself? Um, for me, I think about how do I set myself up for success. So if I know that if I walk in having recently experienced some joy or one of these, big emotions that we have. We talk about there's 10 big positive emotions. I don't know about you, but when I first learned this, I was like, ooh, I don't know all those. And I
Okay.
sure never taught all my early learners all those. I taught them like happy, excited, maybe. I was never talking about off ever. So, I think learning what are these big positive emotions and then thinking about how I can induce that for myself as sort of an antecedent based strategy if I know that I'm going into a situation that's going to be challenging and require me to be a really good problem solver and to get really creative. Why would I not do something that research has shown is more effective for me to be able to engage in those skills at a higher rate?
That's a fascinating way of thinking about it, where it's like I'm gonna purposely make myself happy before I'm about
Mhm.
to go into the fire.
Yeah.
But it's
Well, why not?
interesting. But yeah, why not? And I mean, I'm literally having kind of a lot of personal light bulb moments here about how one of the things I often will advise people that I supervise when they're going into a tense meeting is for just a moment, picture this as a sitcom and see what thoughts come to your mind then so that whatever you say, because otherwise you just kind of get dragged into that same script of, there's an us and there's a them. And whether you're at an IEP meeting that's really heated or you're at an ISP meeting where everybody's not on the same page, it's so easy to get lost in that. So I actually literally recommend it. Why don't you just think about, like, pretend this is the sitcom version of this story that's playing out in front of you, and like just take it in for a moment and kind of see if you can find the humor in it, which is sort of a similar idea. And
It's
then,
present that idea, right? Like evoke some humor, one of those positive emotions before you walk in there. Yep.
yeah, and I mean, just personally, I know that if I'm having a rougher time or rougher day, I mean, I've definitely noticed where my problem solving is so much less than when I mean, I could be in physical pain and just received bad news, but if I'm am like emotionally feeling better or if I'm, have just been having like these moments of joy or whatever, I'll intersect it completely differently. And it's
Yes.
like I can just sort of see like, oh, here's a pathway through that storm. Might not make it through that path, but like there's this, I don't know, it's a completely different experience. And I hear some of what you're saying. Again, I'm just sort of it's making me
Yeah.
think, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, when I was first introduced to this sort of arm of psychology, having been primarily spending all of my time in behavior analysis and not really looking at this sort of other arm of our discipline. I had a similar experience. It's like, as I was reading the research, as I was learning more, I was like, oh, this just intuitively makes sense. And I think we can all have those moments where we're like, well, that's true, because that's what I experience. And we know, like, we have a negativity bias, and it serves us well a lot of the time, right? That's how we escape lions and things. But it also can cause us to sit with those negative emotions for longer, perceive them as more important or bigger. And so we have to really practice the skill of noticing what's right and not always what's wrong, and engaging in those things that evoke those positive emotions, because it's easier for us to go, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, than it is for us to say, that's right, that's right, that's right. And even from just a biological standpoint, studies show that when you have negative emotions, your sort of visual field narrows. And when you
Hmm.
experience positive emotions, your visual field expands.
Wow.
And again, makes sense, um, that when you're in sort of negative emotions, you're kind of like laser focused, which is why we're like, what's the problem? How do we fix this problem?
Yeah. How do I get out? Right. I'm looking for
Uh-huh,
escape.
uh-huh. So, yeah, I just think there's so much there that you can think about as you're trying to set yourself up for success, whether it's a stressful IEP meeting or a session. Um, I think there's ways to do that. And, we talk at Proof Positive, we have resources around, you made me think of it when you talk about IEP meetings, but sort of like, how might you start an IEP meeting with strength spotting? How do you identify what has what has gone right instead of always what is not going right? Where did the student exhibit those strengths in the last week? I mean, as a parent, imagine what that would feel like if you're sitting in a meeting and it starts with strengths.
Yeah. No, sets a completely
Changes that
different
whole
tone.
dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about 5 or 10 years down the road, what what's your hope when it comes to human services workforce, and what do you think needs to change in order for that future to become possible?
I love this question. Thank you for asking it. Um, my hope truly is that a person can thrive in the human service industry, not just survive it. I really hope that we can make impactful changes to how we lead, how we train, and how we support people and their well-being, because people need to be able to go into this field and stay in this field and thrive in this field and be proud and want to spend 25 years, and not just sort of, oh my gosh, how do I get through one more day of this? We see the burnout levels right now. We see people just leaving the field altogether, um, sometimes in short order. So, my hope is that people can really learn to thrive in this field, and that we can adjust some of our organizational practices to support individuals' well being and help them achieve that.
Hmm. I love that vision for the future. Yeah, sign me up for that one. I completely agree, and certainly that's what the work of myself with IDD Leader is all about. In many ways, is
Yeah.
helping providers thrive with their workforce, and of course, then that affects everybody. I mean,
Yes.
uh, everybody directly, and then all the people in their circles. I mean, it's so different if people like showing up to work, or if the individuals being served actually have a good relationship with their staff or their service provider. I mean,
Yes.
it's just such a different experience.
Completely.
Anyhow, so well, I don't want to end before asking, how can listeners connect with you or with the work of Proof Positive? Is there a good, I mean, certainly I'll put the website on in the show notes. Is there kind of a great like launching point, or like here's where you first dip your foot in the water? Anything along those
Yeah.
lines?
Yes. Great question. So I have a couple things. One, um, go to our website. Thank you for sharing it. We do a monthly live support session. and individuals can sign up for that. It's just an opportunity once a month to come to a session. I run several of them, and we walk through the website. We share where you can find resources, but we also just sort of talk about implementation together. And so anyone can join. People share ideas with each other. I support where I can. But it's a nice opportunity to learn a little bit more about us, find our resources, navigate the website, but also problem solve and talk about how implementation could work for you. We do have resources under our quick start menu that have some implementation ideas. So if you want to get started, let's say with implementing something in a team meeting, we've got sort of one pagers that can share how you might do that. Um, so that would be a couple of the ways that you can engage with us.
Okay.
And then
And for the
certainly my info's on there. People can always reach out to me directly.
awesome, awesome. For those monthly meetings that you were just talking about, is that something that someone should register for ahead of time, or is that just on the website that they're going to see that? Or okay, great.
Yeah. Without having it in front of me, but
No,
yes,
no, it's okay.
if you
I'm
go
sure they'll.
to the website, yes, I think it's maybe under get started, but you'll find a link and it'll say join our webinar. You click on that, it'll allow you to join one or many, and then you'll just get an invite, and it's through Zoom.
Okay, awesome. No, that sounds really simple. And you said anyone's invited. I I guess I just want to clarify. I mean, are you having executive directors, frontline staff, individuals, adults with autism? Like who is on this? Is it literally all of the
Anybody,
above?
all of the above. Anybody can register. Anybody can join.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it affects humans, so
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of
Everyone's welcome.
commonalities there. So okay, I just wasn't sure if it
We
had a
also
certain spin or geared more in a certain direction with any of that.
No. And then we also have an opportunity to join our alliance. Our alliance is really just a group of like minded people who are interested and invested in supporting the well being of the autism community. As part of that, you'll get um, monthly emails with updates. You'll learn more when we share new resources about new skills. You also get exclusive webinars with um, our team. So, Katie Curran is our Chief Wellbeing Officer. She is really the brain behind all of this. She has a dual background in behavior analysis as well as a master's degree in applied positive psych. We are just so lucky to have her as a leader, and she will host webinars. So, great opportunity to learn more from her. So, you can also join our alliance to learn more.
Awesome. And then just one last clarifying question on that. And I think you have told me this off air, but is that free to join the alliance, or is that
Absolutely. Yes.
okay?
The only thing we ask is your name and your email.
Okay. So, if this is resonating with any listeners, that's kind of a no-brainer. They should just go ahead and do that right away. Okay. Uh, anyhow, well, listen, Paige, I really appreciate your time and you bring in your expertise, and it's nice it's a little different angle, a little different flavor than some of of guests I normally have, which is just a huge gift to us. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, it was a joy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wow, I learned a lot from her insights, and frankly, I just really appreciated her different perspective. It's not a voice that we're listening to a lot on this podcast with this whole focus and push on well-being, and yet it's an undercurrent that's been there the whole time. It's kind of like sneaks up on you like that. Pretty cool. Now, I always try to leave you with a next step or an action move that you could take and implement immediately. This would be what I'd say from today's. Something that came up in my conversation with Paige was this whole notion that having a week of appreciation or having big events to promote well-being, although they are a good thing, and I wouldn't recommend just stopping them, that it kind of misses the mark when it comes to what are we doing in the daily and weekly habits that build and promote and increase well-being. And so my action move is simply to to ask you that question, or have you asked that to yourself or to your team? What are we doing that's building this on a regular basis? Because the once a year thing or the once a quarter event, it's great, but it won't sustain the day to day as much as the small, consistent things will. And so, yeah, take a moment to assess that. And as soon as something becomes immediately apparent, then by all means, implement one of the strategies or the suggestions that she gives. And of course, I also recommend check out their website, join the alliance that she talked about. Now, one last thing. I have a free resource for you that if you like it, you will probably enjoy it. At least I think you will. um, a lot of times what I've found is that supervisors get promoted and they're not really trained in how to lead people. They're great in the providing the care or the support or the interventions, and they generally tend to be more of the enthusiastic employees. But when all of a sudden they're a boss and now they're in charge of their what used to be their peers and their colleagues, it creates a lot of interesting and different dynamics than what most people are used to. And it requires a skill set that may or may not have been getting developed along the way. So I have a resource because sometimes supervisors are unintentionally burning out their teams by things like avoiding hard conversations or not being as clear as what's needed, and a lot of other things as well. You can pick up that resource at iddleader.com/burnout, and I'd love for you to have it for free. Well, until next time, here's to you. Keep up the amazing work.